Welcome to the Reel to Reel podcast, where the stories behind the board go on record. I'm your host, Bruce Hensal, with my co-host Drigo from the Melrose Center audio team. And our guest today is David Schweizer, a local hero, and Howard Albert of Fat Albert Production. Please welcome our first guest, David Schweizer. Davey's a singer, songwriter, guitarist, and producer. Good morning, David.
Good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great.
Great to be here, so thanks for having me.
You bet.
Welcome.
Thank you.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was your Davey Rocker and the Barnyard Jam.
Well, the Barnyard Jam was created because, lo and behold, I created 3 children. And so I had done tons of, at that point, tons of engineering and playing live in an adult situation. But so I took my hand at a children's record and took a stab at it. And lo and behold, that's how the Barnyard Jam was born. And from there, it turned into a live puppet musical with the help of some really talented puppeteers and puppet builders. And so it's still, we're actually getting ready to do the Fringe Festival.
Oh, that's marvelous. I'm sorry I haven't seen the show yet, but I have seen Life on Mars, which is another project you have.
Mm-hmm, sure. Yeah, Life on Mars is it's definitely not a Bowie tribute band, but we certainly put the man in there. What's a great show without David Bowie? Come on. But it's a fantastic band. I'm incredibly fortunate to play with these incredible musicians. Gary Hibbard on guitar and mandolin. Jessica Martins on mandolin, fiddle, and vocals, Bunky Garabrandt on trumpet and vocals, Bobby Shiles on drums, Kevin Stever on bass and vocals. So we have a big vocal section just alone with the band. So
well, they're some of the most creative arrangements of some of these cover tunes I'd ever heard. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's a lot of fun. We can cover a lot of ground with all those players, so it's a lot of fun.
Well, now, do you have a regular
gig?
A Wednesday night gig with that band?
With that particular band, we do the first Wednesday of every month over at, it was originally at Dexter's in Winter Park, and now it's called the New Standard. And so actually tonight we're going to be performing there. But yeah, so the first Wednesday of every month. We're talking about possibly changing that to a weekend, but man, it's hard to get all these great players on a weekend night.
I know.
Schedules.
So,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
So, but my other solid gig every Monday night, I'm out at the front porch at the House of Blues.
Oh, great. And
there I have a 4-piece band, which is, and I've been doing that gig for, I think they grandfathered me in at that one. So, but it's, a drum, bass, guitar trio. Then we either add Bunky on trumpet and vocals or Jesse on violin and vocals. So it's a lot of fun.
Great.
Yeah, so.
Let's take a listen to Morton the Caterpillar off of Davey Rocker's Barnyard Jam.
Well, Morton sat up and brushed off his 20 knees, said to his friends, "Did you see me fly? I soared down here from the top of the pickle tree." His friends just laughed and they said, "Nice try." Well, my daddy has a favorite song he always loves to sing. "Believe in yourself, you can do anything." He said, "Trust, trust, 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 believe in what you do. Trust, 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 'cause I believe in you." He said, "Love, love, love will get you off the ground. Love, love, love is the sweetest thing around." Morton thought, "I'm just not feeling right. My body is weak and my legs are feeling tight." On a dark, stormy night, Morton climbed that pickle tree, spun himself a sleeping bag and fell fast asleep. When he pulled back his sleeping bag, the sun was shining down. Looked at his friends, they were waiting on the ground. He thought of a song that his daddy always sings. Walked to the edge and he spread his wings. And he flew, 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 flew way up in the sky. Flew, 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 flew like a butterfly. And he flew, 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 flew way up in the sky. He flew, 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 now he's a butterfly. And it's love, 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 get you off the ground. Love, love, love is the sweetest thing around. Said trust, 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 believe in what you do. Trust, 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 'cause I believe.
All right, I know you also produced a record with a friend of mine, Terry Binion, who's also a friend of the Melrose Center.
Yes, yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I've worked with Terry on her past 2 records, and she is an amazing talent, as you know, and just such a gifted writer, and just a beautiful voice, and very incredibly meticulous at what she does, and I certainly appreciate and love her for that. But we've spent a lot of time together making her records and kind of crafting almost a new band for each song. Whatever that song really called for, we would kind of put it together track by track.
That's a fun way to make a record.
Yeah, it is.
So each song had like a different set of
musicians? We ended up using, typically the same rhythm section. That sometimes did change too, but definitely on the highlighted solo parts, one might be a dobro or a pedal steel, and we had Wally Murphy. I mean, just all these incredible players. So it was such a joy to kind of work with all these players and kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and from great horn players to great string players.
Just capture a different energy from song to song, right?
Yeah. It was, and then obviously you got to kind of make it all work together. Right. That's a challenge in itself. But no, Terry's incredibly gifted at.
Well, that's the one thing that continues to amaze me about Orlando and the music scene is the depth of talent in musicians. I think it rivals any place I've ever lived, and that includes Los Angeles.
Wow. Yeah, I'm constantly blown away when I'm seeing these new just people I haven't seen play before, especially since the new Standard opened up.
Right.
I've been going there quite a bit because it's really close to my house. So after work, I'll stop by. But there is so much talent in Orlando, like phenomenal players. So I think we're really fortunate to be here.
It's almost like you can go out every single night, go to different places, and you'll find someone you like.
Yeah. There's a lot of great players.
Well, and it's also cross-genre, too. It definitely, from Latino music to Americana.
Singer-songwriter to jazz. It's all there. So one of the things that I really love about performing at the House of Blues is that the audience is different every week, and so that's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of people, plus just it's almost like even though you are performing some songs that you've performed many times, it's great when there's a new audience to perform it for.
Well, especially being on Disney property, it's an international audience that you don't find, at least in that abundance, downtown.
Right. right. So it's definitely a great gig.
Well, let's take a listen to one of the songs off of Terry's record.
Sure.
People look for the light. Everyone needs love. Some will live and die, still in search of. In search of love, live and die. In search of love, a perfect light in someone. In search of love, a perfect light, perfect love. Perfect light, perfect love. Perfect love. Perfect Perfect love. Perfect love. Perfect light, perfect love. Perfect light, perfect love. Perfect light, perfect
Welcome back to the Reel to Reel podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Hensal, with my co-host Drigo from the Melrose audio team, and my local guest, David Schweizer. Well, Davey, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the new Jessica Martin's record you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little about it.
Well, we are in the process of putting it together. We have about 6 of the tracks pretty well together, hoping to get a couple more before she takes off for the summer to Europe. But it is always a very fun, creative process working with Jessie. She's an incredible talent, and typically we also have Anthony Cole in the mix, and Anthony is a phenomenal everything. I mean, drummer, bass player, keyboard, sax, vocalist. So we're able to cover a lot of ground just with the 3 of us. But there's this record is very interesting. Her last record we did, Finding Flowers, was a really kind of great sonic, landscape for just creative instruments, vocals, songwriting. So this is kind of a similar project where we're going to just have a lot of fun experimenting in the studio and kind of bringing these tracks to life in a different way.
Well, I can't wait to hear the entire record.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
We're going to take a listen to In the Well by Jessie Lynn Martins.
If you don't, well, I won't stay. This place is hell. It's getting worse by the day. This time I can't do what I promised to and say, baby, I'll be happy no suits and ties and crooked smiles, handing out their money. But to me, there's no need, 'cause I'm alive inside the wow with you, my gal. We're alive, you can see our eyes, me and my gal. There's a well that comes to life when the moon is full and you can see the eyes in the well. They look alive. Red rum, red rum, black red rum, 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 red rum, red rum,
Welcome back to the Reel to Reel podcast, and that was In the Well by Jessica Martins, produced by David Schweizer, our guest this week. Davey, if you can, why don't you tell us a little about your studio, Richter Recording?
Richter Recording. Well, Richter is placed over off Princeton and I-4, and it's a house that was built in the 1925s, and so I've converted the upstairs into a studio. And it's basically a Pro Tools studio with the C24, and but it's a very comfortable recording space. I've got a separate drum room, a separate vocal booth, and guitar booth. So for the amount of square footage that it is, it really packs a punch. And I've done just a ton of different projects in there, from, singer-songwriter stuff to full, 8-piece bands.
Well,
So
I've heard a few things in there, and it meets the main requirement of a studio. It sounds good.
yes, it does. It does.
How do you get any noise from like I-4 going into the studio?
Very little. You would think, because I literally sit on the corner of Princeton and I-4. But when I went to really build the upstairs into the studio, we went to a great length to try to keep the noise out.
Right.
I was very fortunate to work with a gentleman, Niels Castor, at NK Engineering, and Niels was very helpful in helping soundproof that room and really kind of dialing in the room, along with building preamps and everything else. So it was
especially being upstairs.
That
Must have been fun.
Yeah. So so it actually is very quiet being where it is. So it works out well. And if a siren goes by, then we just use it, because the hospital's close too.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but it all works. So
The found sounds that wind up on the record.
yeah. Oh yeah. Matter of fact, with all the I-4 stuff that's been happening, there was this this machine that was pounding these big pylons in. And so I'll have to show you at some point, but we ended up, and it was very rhythmic. And so I brought Anthony out there with a big tom drum, and we did a big, recorded this great thing going along with and then I actually, hooked up about 3 40-foot cables and went as close as I could with some mics and sampled the sound. And so we got all kinds of, if you can't beat them, join them.
Right, I love that, taking advantage of your acoustic environment.
Make the best out of it.
Yeah, and we actually, on the last thing, the last project I did, it was a 30-minute score for this beautiful piece of, it's a puppetry piece that Heather Henson, Jim Henson's daughter, put together called Celebration of Flight. Anyways, we use that sound in the there's a dance piece that we ended up using that sampled
that's
sound
great.
in. Yeah, so
That's great.
So we made it work.
Also, if you could, you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with Heather Henson and the shows that you do with her?
Sure. Well, because of the Barnyard Jam, and I've kind of got into the world of puppetry. I was through a mutual friend, Davey Jordan. I met Heather Henson, and she was very supportive of what we did. And so we began to do the Barnyard Jam, and she kind of began to sponsor it at certain events. And then she was doing a show called Sing Along with the Muppet Movie and asked me to co-host with her. And it's a great show. It's almost like the original Muppet Movie, kind of like a Rocky Horror vibe with it, with the original Muppet. Everybody gets a goodie bag, and it's a lot of fun. But I was able to kind of bring the singer song leading aspect into the show, along with all kinds of other things. But so it's a great show, and it toured. We toured it a lot a while ago, and now because of her schedule, it doesn't tour as much. But we did one last fall at the Kennedy Center.
Wow.
When they opened up their new wing, which was really awesome. Had about 1,000 people come to the show, so
That's cool.
yeah,
Wow.
it was fun. So, but anyways, I'm really pleased to be a part of that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Davey, what have you got on the calendar upcoming?
Let's see. I do, like I said, we have the Fringe Festival for Kids Fringe. The Davey Rocker and the Barnyard Jam will be there, which is a fun show. 4 puppeteers with these very great puppets built by my friend John Kennedy, who works for Sesame Street. So really cool puppets. So that's I believe that's in May. I don't have the date, but other than that, there's a lot of local shows, again, at the House of Blues, first Wednesday at the New Standard. Also I do a little show with myself and Anthony called DNA, where it's just the two of us, and he plays sax and I play guitar and sing, and so we do that over at the Imperial in downtown Orlando.
Okay,
So,
great.
Yeah, so other than that, I do have one thing I would like to mention.
Sure.
My kids have a project called Sigh Girl, S-I-G-H Girl, Sigh Girl, and it is very good. I have to say, I'm not just being a proud papa.
Right.
They are really pulling it together and doing some very cool stuff.
I know I've seen a couple clips of that on Facebook, and I was very impressed.
Yeah. My daughter, when she was about 12, really started writing songs on the ukulele and then over to guitar. And so now, and she's got a really unique voice, something very special about it. So
Is it like singer-songwriter kind of stuff?
she started out that way, but Sigh Girl is it's very it's a new sound. I mean, it's got a lot of production behind it, but guitar oriented, along with great beats and great production.
Cool.
So it's my daughter and my son, and my daughter now is 16 and my son is 18, Luke and Grace, and then my drummer's son, Saxon, is kind of the producer guy behind it. So we're actually in the studio now at my place, putting some final touches on some
Cool.
stuff. So maybe we could play a little bit of that too.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Let's take a listen to that. And the project is called Sigh Girl.
Says that he's just sick. Take take a sip, swallow that in. You think you're grown, but that's not how it is. Baby, you're still just a kid. You still got a lot of life left to live. Before you know what's in your ribs, in your arms in the dark now, waiting to fall apart now. But life is hard with the lights off. We barely talk now. Say when breaking your heart, don't know how to say you're my favorite part. Yeah, you're driving me crazy, I'm crashing my car. Don't know what to think when worlds apart. Don't know what to say when breaking your heart. Don't know how to say you're my favorite part. Yeah, you're driving me crazy, I'm crashing my car. Take it or leave it. We have our reasons.
Hi, I'm Bruce Hensal, and I'm here on the Reel to Reel podcast with my guest, David Schweizer, and our next guest is a keyboardist, engineer, producer, studio and record label owner, as well as a qualified yacht captain. It's my pleasure to welcome our guest, Howard Albert. Hey, Howard.
Hey, how are you, Bruce? Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you. Say hello to my co-host, Drigo.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello, co-host Rigo.
And my guest, David Schweizer.
Hey,
hello,
Howard.
David.
Hello, Howard. Good to have you.
You sound excited.
I'm thrilled. No, it is. It's a treat to be here and talking with you.
Well, Howard, part of the reason I brought you together with David is you guys kind of have something in common in terms of you've both produced children's albums.
It's funny because I just happened to one of the titles that we did was called "Do the Elephant." You sneeze into your.
I was going to mention that.
Of your arm.
I was going to mention that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I checked out that video and I thought, what an appropriate time to push this song.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of hits on it. Actually, they're doing pretty good.
So if you do the elephant, it teaches a kid how to sneeze into his arm rather than. And the video is great, the song is great, the production's great, and really creative songwriting as well. So your daughter did a great job.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, fantastic.
Do the elephant when you cough. Do the elephant when you sneeze. Achoo. If you want to make sure no one else gets sick, pretend you're an elephant, please. Whether you're stomping in the jungle, at the mall, or visiting your uncle, all you have to do is swing up your arm and your germs will stay safely in your runkle.
Runkle?
Yeah, that's the middle of your arm.
Oh.
Do the elephant when you cough. Do the elephant when you sneeze.
So I've been doing the runkle here as long as a bunch of other people. A little scary what's going on out there.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a scary time for sure.
Yeah.
But now we're going to talk about something lighter.
Helium.
Helium, exactly.
Speaking of helium, Howard, I think probably one of the most well-known albums that you're associated with is Derek and the Dominoes' Layla. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that was a collaboration kind of record with not just with musicians, but also with the engineers. That was done at Criteria Studios in several different rooms, and sort of edited different tracks were put together. One, half a track from here and half a track from there. And it was myself, my brother Ron Albert, Carl Richardson, Chuck Kirkpatrick, and we kind of all tag team to kind of do that record with Tom Dowd producing. It was quite interesting record to make. And of course we had Greg Allman kind of come on and do some stuff, and he was recording in the next room. Back in that day, everybody kind of whatever was going on in one studio, the guys would come over and work on the other studio. So it was just one big happy family. And it's that record. Obviously I still hear it today, and it still seems to hold up. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree it's kind of one of their favorites. By the way, speaking of those days at Criteria, Tubby Ziegler said to say hello to you, Howard.
Oh, great. Yeah, back at you, Tubby.
I first met you and Ron, I believe, when you were doing Stephen Stills and the Manassas record, and I was Stephen's live audio engineer.
Right.
That was...
Is that what it was? Or was that the record plant day? I can't remember.
Well, no, the record plant day was later on. I had first met you in Miami when they were working on the first record.
Okay.
I had just passed through. But then after I was working at the record plant in Los Angeles, we had a fire at the record plant. And
yeah, that's the one I remember quite well. We get a call from Bruce about 1 o'clock in the morning when Ron and I were at the hotel. And Bruce says, there's a fire at the record plant, but don't worry, I got all your tapes. So we rushed over there. And when I say all your tapes, Stephen, we used to record it just air. Didn't have to be recording with it. When anybody was in the studio, the reels were turning. And so we had about a truckload of tapes, and we get down to the record plant. Now it's about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Here's Bruce standing outside, his firemen all around him. He's standing by about a mountain of 24-track tapes sitting there. We got all our tapes out. And so obviously the record plant wasn't going to be opening time soon, and we said to Bruce, hey, why don't you come down to Miami? We'll finish up down there. And he came down, gave the job, and that became a very good relationship.
Yeah, the fire happened in January, and I believe I was moving into Don Gayman's house in Keystone Point in March. So
there you go.
Yeah. And Criteria was very much like the record plant in that, as you said, the guy in the next room could have been anybody, and you usually got him to play on your record.
Right.
I was...
Whether he wanted them or not.
Exactly. And we won't talk about who that was.
That's right.
That's funny. But totally lost my train of thought, so that we're going to get a big...
you were saying the record plant was a lot like Criteria.
Right. And I remember working, doing Julio Iglesias in the morning, taking a dinner break, working with, I believe it was Mutiny, the ex-Parliament Funkadelic band, in the evening, and then about 2 a.m, working on a punk band called Shy Pig, all in the same day. So that was kind of a typical day at Criteria.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's, went on for many years. Unfortunately, it's turned to what it is now, which is a beautiful studio. But I think it's mainly hip hop and I don't know what else. I mean, that's all that's really happening here in Miami. It's mainly hip hop. So.
Yeah,
I know in our studio we're doing 25 hip hop sessions a day, all of them an hour or 2 hours apiece. But we got a lot of them, so it's working out,
You want to tell us a little about your studio? I know it's called Audio Vision.
Well, Yeah, we have. We're actually just down the street from the Criteria. Or now, well, it was called Criteria. Then it went to Hit Factory. Now it's back to Criteria. No one seems to know why. But anyway, I just we opened up down the street. We're about I don't know. I guess we're about 10 blocks away, and we have 4 rooms. One large room with an SSL 62 input console, and I think everything else is we've gone to Raven systems with Pro Tools HD in all the rooms. The guys seem to like the little rooms for some reason. They put about 25, 30 people in a 10 by 10 room, and they're comfortable in there with huge speakers and as many subwoofers as you can put in there.
The more people, the better, huh?
Yeah, and they do all the vocals and everything. Most of it's done in the control room, even though we do have booths for each room. But they seem to like doing the vocals with the most expensive Sony C800s they can find, and the CLI 1Bs, and we don't know why.
Yeah. Well, and also they can use those ISO booths as party rooms and
That's party room, yeah, exactly.
mix the drinks in there.
Yeah, we just put a 70-inch TV in one of the rooms just for that purpose.
Those are the amenities that are necessities in the studio.
That's right. That's right.
I did want to
And don't forget, we do have a vending machine that says healthy snacks on it. However, I don't think there are any healthy snacks in it. But it makes as much money as one of the rooms. So a little tip I'd like to relate. If anybody has a studio, make sure you put a vending machine in.
That is a good point.
Well, I remember Chris Stone encouraging video games in the late 70s into the control room so that the clients could waste some time and spend more time in there.
Yeah, well, a couple of we had all those pinball machines, if you remember, Bruce, at
Right.
Criteria.
Yeah.
That was a good wasting time thing. But then I remember, I can't remember which studio it was. I think it was somewhere out in L.A. They would give you, for any food that you wanted, if you wanted lobster, they'd go out and bring you a lobster dinner in. And it was cheaper. It was Cherokee is what it was. And whatever you wanted, they'd bring in. They figured, hey, it's cheaper to get your dinner and keep the clock rolling.
Right.
And they're making money on the studio time. So that worked out pretty good for them.
Yeah, that was the philosophy. If the client took an hour and a half for dinner and was gone from your studio, the clock was not running.
Yeah,
So-
we're running.
So this is
Right.
Studio Management 101 we're
That's right.
learning here.
Right. So what are you guys doing up there?
We are in the Melrose Center, which is in the Orange County Public Library. And this is their recording studio, and we're utilizing their entire audio team and their video team. We're filming
Okay.
it, and we're doing a podcast.
Excellent. You have a vending machine.
We don't have a vending machine, not anymore.
Okay.
But it's a library. It's not for profit, Howard. That's the point.
And it's a beautiful.
Well, yeah, you don't want to. And you don't want to.
Yeah.
Because it's all for profit.
It's the only profit we'll make this year in the studio
That's
business.
it. Yeah, that's it.
Hey, Howard, I did want to say one thing going back to Do the Elephant. I did want to mention that the name of the band is The Jimmies.
The Jimmies, yeah.
Yeah, I think
J-I-M-M, I think it's Y-S, I think is how it's spelled. Is it J-M?
I think it might be IES.
J-I-M-M-I, and it's just J-I-M-M-I. It's just like the candy, the Jimmies. That's where the name came from.
That's very cool.
Like
But I
the
did
sprinkles, call them Jimmies.
I did want to plug that. Also, I think it's so cool that you and your brother have maintained this really cool working relationship all these years, and that you guys have been able to kind of
Yeah, we've always been
tag
pretty
team.
close that way. I don't think we've ever really had an argument between us in our whole lives.
That's fantastic.
So
And
I don't know what that is, but we get along pretty good together. He's left-handed, I'm right-handed. Goes good together.
Yeah.
That's how I tell the story. That's how the center console, not center console, but the subgroups in the center of consoles came about because Jeep Harnett put it on one of his consoles for us, so I could grab a couple of faders on the right, and my brother could grab a couple of faders on the left, and we could still sit in the sweet spot in the center, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then from there, SSL stole it at a AES convention in Europe, and all the other console manufacturers to follow. So pretty interesting story there. But yeah, Jeep Harnett was the one that came up with that idea.
Well, that's, once again, logic coming into console design seems a little crazy, but I remember that concept and the fact that it was that you and Ron were left and right-handed that made it work.
Made it work. But yeah, but you can see, even if you have just one guy sitting in the middle, that's the place to be.
Exactly.
So, it was, why they everybody put him on the right-hand side for so many years, I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah, I think
that, anyway.
Yeah, that was probably a console designer's optimum layout for them. Put it down at the end. You don't need those.
You don't need those. That's right. You don't need those. Now you don't need meters anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all on the
Matter of
computer.
fact, you don't need anything anymore.
Except
You just,
a vending machine.
yeah.
If you want to make a good record.
So,
yeah. Sorry.
So, let's see, what else? I just lost my train of thought there, Bruce. I had something. What happens when you get old?
Yep. It's heading down the tracks.
Well, I think we can take like a little break, maybe play some of the music.
Listen to the sound of the night bird singing. I wonder who he calls. My fingers hurt so bad, it's got me grinning. And I wonder if I can do it all. Hit a stretch of rapids in the rushing river. I'm looking out for boulders and falls. A woman, she watches from the top of the canyon, hoping it don't drown us all. Help me now, gotta slow down, hear my singing call.
Hi, welcome back to the Reel to Reel podcast. We're here with our guest Howard Albert and our local guest David Schweizer and my co-host Drigo from the Melrose Center audio team. Hey Howard, how's it going?
It's going. Glad to be with you today.
So I hear that you have a little bit experience with multi-miking drum kits and all that kind of stuff. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about that?
When I started the studio, it was a 3-track. It was that was an Ampex 3-track machine. Come a little bit of ways from there, but so everything was sort of done live, and it'd be like one mic over the drums or 2 mics over the drums, and that's about it. And so I was in the Army. I got out of the Army in 1969, and I went right into the studio. I was a studio musician before that. Anyway, when I got into the studio, I didn't know anything about anything, and it seemed to me like that could be a better way to mic those drums. So I started putting mics on every drum that I could find. If there was a drum set that had 45 toms, I'd put 45 mics up, and that seemed to work pretty good. The only problem is that I was using these mics that were extremely expensive because at the time Mac Emmerman, the owner of Criteria, had all these, Neumanns and Telefunkens and all these. He was a jazz guy, the orchestras and stuff. So he had all these expensive mics, and I was putting these mics. I could take a KM84 or something, and I'd put it on the snare drum, and everybody their hair would raise, but it seemed to work pretty good. So that's sort of what happened. And one of my first experiences with multi-miking drums was I tried to use a couple of Altec, I think they're Altec. No, I'm sorry, they're Electro Voices. They were like these pencil mics. I said, hey, they might be good as drumsticks.
Was that the RE15?
You know what? I can't remember the name of the number of those. They could have been. It was like a silver pencil mic with kind of like a little round, sort of a half head on it.
Right. That was the
RE15.
RE15. Real popular on guitars.
The guitars. Yeah, that was it. So yeah, I tried that. That didn't work though. But anyway, we got a pretty good drum sound, and it became the norm pretty much after that. We were getting all these, fat back drums. And, people were coming down just for the drum sound, so that was pretty cool. And then, of course, from the 3-track, it went to 4-track, and 4-track went to 8-track, and 8-track went to 16-track, and then the 24-track. Then we started locking up the 24s, and now it's way out of hand.
Oh yeah, nowadays, you're talking, people are putting like 3 overheads, 3 microphones on snare, top, bottom.
Well, they're not even, in our studio, they don't even use microphones. Everything is synthesized, which is a shame. But what gets me about the recording today is that they're using all these tracks, 100, 200 tracks, and they're using, they're running all these, plugins, 45 plugins a track, which is just ludicrous in my way of thinking. They're using so much processing on every track that you get this horrible sound at the end. They don't seem to realize that that's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, that's the one way to get digital to sound bad is to put it through a lot of different calculations. And when you put
auto-tune, there's got to be 2 or 3 auto-tunes on each track, whether they're tuning the auto or just looking for an effect,
Right.
Well, nowadays people are sample replacing all the drums they wonderfully recorded, only to sample replace everything and only keep the overheads.
Yeah. Well, that's the way of the world, I guess. But you guys are still doing some music up there, right? I mean, some actual live recording. So I can't say we do too much of that anymore. Once in a while we'll get a band in, but very seldom. We got some guys that actually can play that are engineers, and they do a little bit of live guitar stuff. But it's far and few in between.
Well, Miami has become the hotbed of hip hop. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, we started back with Booty Bass back in 2006, and with Vision Records was one of the. We actually opened our studio for the record company, and then it actually was in 1979, and we had a bunch of success with Betty Wright R&B and a bunch of other local R&B acts, and did pretty good. And then we started with the hip hop stuff, or actually it was Booty Bass, and we did real well with that until hip hop sort of took over, and they were doing kind of nasty language stuff. We said we weren't going to do that. So everybody that had that kind of stuff, we passed on. They went to the record company down the street, and they did well. And we kind of sat there with our clean words, a clean product, and didn't sell that much of that stuff. But another great idea that we kind of passed on. But
well, it's all cyclical in this business, that. So
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Just wait. Live musicians will be back in vogue for a minute at some point.
I hope
I'm
so.
Sure. Yeah,
I hope so. It'd be, if you look at the country music, it's still a lot of stuff going on. Actually, we all know country's kind of the new rock, and there's some good pickers and some good music. A lot of it's pretty good. So
All
anyway.
right. Yep. Well, I think we are drawing to a close. I'm going to do a few little pickups here later, but I want to thank you for joining us, Howard.
That was my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey guys, good talk to y'all.
You bet.
Thanks,
And
Howard.
just keep this in mind. If you run into any of those electric voice mics, don't try this drumsticks. They don't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the RE15.
That's a little tip.
Not a good
I'd like to relate.
drumstick.
That's right. That's a good drumstick.
Appreciate it, Howard.
You got it.
Take care.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you for joining us on the Reel to Reel podcast, where the stories behind the board go on record. I'm your host, Bruce Hensal, with my co-host, Drigo, and my guests, Howard Albert and David Schweizer. I'd like to thank the Melrose Center and Carol Hensal for the theme music.